It is 8:30 on a Monday morning in Athens, Greece. That would make it 8:30 in Kiev and 9:30 in Moscow. On this Monday morning, we have a lot of news to get to, a lot of small stories, not insignificant stories, but just a lot of stuff to go over. It's a busy weekend, and of course, we're going to talk about Ukraine and Russia and what's going on there. So let me see. I hope I remember everything that I want to say. Let's talk about Mariupol first, because the news came in last night that Kadyrov gave a warning to all the Azov guys and the Ukraine military that's entrenched in Mariupol, that they should lay down their weapons and surrender, or else face annihilation. He put that message out there. That Kadyrov is the leader of Chechnya, and I'm saying this because word came in last night that the Chechens have moved into the city. From what I understand, around 5,000, maybe more. Chechen forces are now going into Mariupol. They're already in there by now because they said they're moving in at nighttime, and they're going to also clear out the city of whatever remaining forces of Ukraine military forces or Azov guys are there. So as we said in a video, Alexander said it on Friday in his video, we said on the Duran, it's just a matter of days before Mariupol is, the situation in Mariupol is resolved and it comes under the control of the Russian military. So that's what's going on in Mariupol. In the east, I'm hearing different reports that the forces are being, that some of the forces in the east are trying to escape out of the cauldron, but they're having no luck. They can't get supplies in. They're in a very desperate state. I'm talking about the Ukraine forces that are stuck in the east, these 60,000 plus or minus forces in the east in that cauldron over there in the Donbass. And I'm just hearing reports that it's a very bad situation for them. And, there's some of the military is trying to get out. And the only way they can get out is just kind of making a run for it. They can't take anything with them, and it's about a 300-kilometer trek from where they are to, the nearest point of safety. So, I mean, I hear that Russian air support is just taking out anything that tries to get out of that cauldron, and well, you have to ask yourself, how are all these encircled Ukrainian forces, how are they getting supplied? How are they getting fuel? How are they getting food, water? Any of these things. The Russians control the airspace. They control the ports. They've got, four cauldrons working throughout Ukraine, and the two major ones right now are Mariupol and the cauldron in the Donbass. And I don't know. I don't know what the reports are coming out of the Western mainstream media, which are saying that Putin is, his military's in shambles. Putin is desperate. I read an article from, I won't say from who, but this analyst, a neocon analyst, and it was shared on our locals page. This neocon analyst was saying that he has a prediction that Russia's going to lose this. The Putin government's going to fall. The Russian military's a mess. They're demoralized. They're deserting. Putin's getting desperate. I could say, okay. I mean, I'll take a look at all these reports, and I'll take a look at all sides. But I just ask myself a very logical question: if this is the case, then how is the Ukraine military doing all of this? I mean, where are they getting their supplies from? Where's all this? Where's all this resistance coming from? Because if Russia is so demoralized, and this leads to the next story I want to discuss, if they're so demoralized and there's such a mess, how do they pull off such a precision missile strike like you had on that NATO training facility in the west of Ukraine, close to Lviv? I believe it's Yavoriv training facility. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But the reports confirmed by all sides, are that anywhere between 30 to 130 military personnel, trainees, and trainers were taken out. And if you believe the Russian side of things, well, this was a training facility for NATO. It was a training facility for Azov guys, and it was an area where weapons and NATO help was being funneled in via Poland, and it's only 15 kilometers from Poland as well. And I mean, the Russians just took it out. I mean, they just obliterated it. And, just bam, gone, precision, and you get from the collective West that this was an act of violence, of an attack against NATO. They can't believe that the Russians took out a military training school. I mean, you're getting these reports, but there's no doubt that this strike from the Russian military was well planned, was executed perfectly. It was very risky, very dangerous to strike a facility that's so close to Poland, but they did it. They took it out. Very risky. And you had a lot of saber rattling from NATO, where you had Stoltenberg saying, if the Russians touch one bullet, one gun that belongs to NATO, well, then we're going to trigger Article 5. And well, Russia's response to that was to take out a whole freaking training school. And then you have to ask yourself, what is a NATO? I mean, if you go by the Russian side of things, and I don't think anyone in the collective West will argue. I don't think anyone in the Biden White House will argue that this wasn't some sort of NATO training facility. I mean, come on. But you have to ask yourself, what is a NATO training facility doing in Ukraine when Ukraine is not part of NATO? That's just a fact. Ukraine is not part of NATO. They're not part of the EU. So you have to ask yourself the question, what is this facility doing there? What is it doing there? But, if the Russian military is so demoralized, is in such a mess, has lost all its confidence, all its trust in Putin, all its trust in its commanding officers, how do they pull off something like this? It's pretty brazen, very risky, especially after Stoltenberg's comments that, touching any equipment of NATO is going to lead to all-out war. And then Russia's response is, yeah, we're just going to take out a military facility, a training facility 15 kilometers from the Polish border. I don't know, it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up, but no doubt that the Russian military was sending a message. I mean, one, they took out a training facility, okay? So there's an operational level there, but they're also sending a message. They're responding to Stoltenberg, they're responding to NATO. They're saying, we're not worried about what you're saying, your threats really don't worry us. And the most important message that the Russian military was sending by doing this was that if you try to train soldiers coming from the West. I hear a lot of these people in this training facility were from what the Russian side of things say, they were mercenaries, or there were soldiers coming in from the West. I actually hear a lot of them from Canada, or trainers from Canada. I don't know. I can't confirm that. It wouldn't surprise me given Freeland's connection, Krista Freeland's deep connection to that area. So she's got a lot of emotional attachment and skin in the game there. But, the Russians are sending a message. Don't, if you guys try to get weapons in via Poland, or try to train mercenaries or soldiers to enter this conflict, we're going to take them out. And they did it. So I don't know. That was big news. That was big news. You have the resumption of talks taking place today. There's a lot of rumors saying that there might be a solution, a peace deal. Let's hope to God that there is a ceasefire, or that there is some sort of peace deal. I have my doubts because, who's really calling the shots in Ukraine? I mean, is it really Zelensky? No, of course it's not. So, I mean, how do you negotiate with a side that isn't able to make the decisions, or has to go somewhere else in order to get the decisions on what you're negotiating? So I don't know. I hope there is a deal, and I hope this ends, but I have my doubts. But let's hope. Let's hope for the best. And at a minimum, I think that the Russians will secure more humanitarian corridors and stuff like that, which we've said for the past week, that the strategy for Russia as they're fighting this conflict is the military working with the diplomacy, and a key component of the diplomacy side of things and the military operational side of things is those corridors, securing those humanitarian corridors to not only let civilians leave, but to also clear areas out of Ukraine military and the Azov guys. In other words, to create those humanitarian corridors so the military people that are entrenched in various encirclements or cauldrons can kind of, get out of there, either slip out of there, sneak out of there, or just surrender and go home. So I think at a minimum, you'll probably get some deals on humanitarian corridors. Will you get a ceasefire? I hope we do, and I hope this ends, but I don't think so, because it seems that the Russian side has been pretty firm on their demands. I mean, we know what the Russians want, and, with each round of negotiations, it looks like the Ukraine side is moving a little closer, but I just don't think it's there yet. By the way, we're on day 19 of this conflict, of this military operation. So that's what's going on the diplomacy side of things. There were reports saying that, from Jake Sullivan, a trusted source in the Biden White House, said that, and then it was picked up by all of the mainstream media, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Financial Times ran the story. I mean, it was picked up pretty much simultaneously by all of these mainstream media outlets. No, they're not state-sponsored at all. No, not at all. They're not working with the state at all. Anyway, the story goes that Putin was asking China for help so that they can fight this war, because once again, the narrative is that, and maybe it's true. Maybe it's true. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, that the Putin's in disarray. His army's demoralized. It's a complete mess. They're getting defeated by the Ukraine military, and he went to China, and he's looking for help from China, for China to provide arms and weapons and assistance. The Chinese embassy in the United States came out and said, we've never heard this ever before. And they said they pretty much said it's fake news. Anyway, that's what the Chinese said about this. And once again, I from what I understand, confirmed by all sides, whether you're pro-Russia, against Russia, pro-Ukraine, against Ukraine, pro-Biden, against Biden, whatever, wherever you are, neocon, neoliberal, whatever, globalist, it doesn't matter. All sides have come to the understanding that the Russian military is only, that this whole operation is only using about 15 to 30% of Russia's military capability. I've gotten that number from across the board, 15 to 30%. Troops, weapons, you name it. That's what they're using in this operation. And if that's the case, say it's 30%, say it's 40%, why would they need to go to China? Why don't they just ramp up the assistance from home? Why don't they just, get more troops from Russia in there, or get more weapons in there? Why do you have to go all the way to China to get help? All the way to China? You're going to go all the way to China to get military assistance? I don't know. Maybe the story's true, but to me, it doesn't make sense. And the Chinese government pretty much denied the claims right away. Does that make it true as well, that the Chinese are saying the truth? No, but I'm just trying to use logic. Why would you need to go all the way to China to get military assistance when you're not even operating on 100%? Anyway, I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I want to discuss? Oh, the New York Times, he wasn't a New York Times journalist, but this guy, Brett Renaud, I believe, that the story was that he was killed by the Russian military in Ukraine. And that's proven to be fake news now as well. He was not a New York Times reporter. He stopped reporting for the New York Times in 2015. That's coming straight from the New York Times. The New York Times said we don't have any association with him anymore. He was on territory controlled by the Ukraine army, and from what I understand, he suffered a head wound, back of the head, and that's what I understand. Those are what the reports are saying. That's how he died, and it looks like that he wasn't killed by Russian military. At least that looks to be the real side of the story. Even though the mainstream media ran with the news that Russia took him out, it looks like that wasn't the case. It seems that he was I've gotten reports that say either he was working on a documentary film, or I've read reports that he was collecting intel. I don't know. It's a tragedy. It's terrible what happened to him. You don't want anyone to die. But the story that he was killed by the Russians is fake news. How he died and who did it or why, we don't know. But he was in area controlled by Ukraine, by the Ukraine military, and from what I gather, he suffered a fatal wound to the back of the head. And what we know for sure, 100%, is that he was not a New York Times reporter. He left in 2015. Oh, hello. Hi, Eleni. You're gonna be in the video, by the way. Yes. How are you? You don't mind if you're on the video? No. Okay. What a beautiful dog.
The best. Yeah,
Oh.
This is Marco.
Hey, Marco. Say hi to the world.
Hello.
To the internet, Marco. All right. Well, you're around here. Okay. All right. So, where was I saying? That's about it. Oh, one more quick bit of news. Digital currencies, central bank digital currencies. Keep an eye out for it. The EU is putting regulation in place to clamp down on Bitcoin, and Biden is putting regulation in place for a central digital bank currency. So while all of this is going on, it looks like the Great Reset agenda has been accelerated, and we are moving towards central bank digital currency. You know what I think happened real quick before I end the video? I think that Schwab and the globalists, they couldn't. They had the 2030 timeline, but they had to accelerate it for the 2030 agenda. And I believe that they couldn't keep the COOF narrative going. That fell apart. And the trucker convoy spooked the hell out of them. People rising up and protesting against Klaus Schwab's protege, Trudeau, I think spooked the hell out of them. And then you had this war, and Russia, India, China to a certain extent. I mean, countries kind of saying, specifically Russia in this case, but, various countries kind of saying, you know what, we're not so hot on this globalist agenda and we're pulling out. We're not so hot on the dollar as reserve currency, and, we kind of want out of the system. So I think this kind of freaked them out, and they're accelerating the central bank digital currency, pushing it up a few years. So maybe we're not looking at Agenda 2030, but maybe Agenda 2025. I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff going on there, everybody. So I know we're all distracted, including myself, but just keep an eye out for the legislation, both in the EU and in the US, coincidentally, with regards to a central bank digital currency. I'm going to have to do a video on this. Just on this. Anyway, everybody, theduran.locals.com. Check out Alexandra's channel, The Duran. That's where you'll get all our live streams and all our videos on The Duran. And you'll find us on Rumble and Odyssey and BitChute and Super U. Take care.